the LG Xboom Go PL7. Remember to look for those last couple of letters so you know what you got. It's the PL7. Well, there's a big brother to that. This is the LG Xboom Go PN7. Now, on paper, they are both 30 watts. Kind of seems interesting. Got this little compact one, not really little compact, but it is next to its big brother. And yet they seem to have the same guts on paper, both rated 30 watts, both have the same battery, 7,800 milliamp hours in 3.7 volt equivalents. But we've got bigger drivers in the PN7 than the PL7. So I had a look at the price, 170 quid. It was slightly less interesting, but then eBay, I saw £110. Suddenly was interesting. Because I do like a bigger speaker. What you get from a bigger speaker is a bigger sound. When I first got the Sony XB43, 3 kilos of, big, heavy speaker, but without, really as deep a bass as it looks and feels as it should go. But what I do get out of the Sony XB43, now I've been listening to it for a long time, is a big, safe sound. And it makes a difference, even when I go to my favourite, the Soundcore Motion Plus afterwards, or side by side. Even if the frequency response is the same, even if the actual tones are the same, you've got a bigger soundstage. There's more air, there's more going on. It's just more immersive. So I figured, this wasn't too bad, I thought, for in its class against the Sony XB33, against the Charge 4, against the Anker Motion Plus, with a reasonable bass. Bigger drivers, bigger box. Even if it's the same guts, maybe it will sound quite nice. I'm not looking for a boombox, which is what most people do, or when they go to a bigger speaker altogether, just a bigger sound, but without going over the top. So £110, I went and bought it. So what have we got? Got to remember those last two letters, really, really important. It's miles long, isn't it? It's the LG, it's the Xboom, it's the Go, but it's the last PN7, and that's where you really find out what speaker you've got. Comparing the specs, well, a retail price, if you don't get a bargain like I got, £169, £140. They both come out this year, both got the same battery. Now, they don't have fantastic codecs, but we do have AAC. Even on Android, it does default to AAC, so that's obviously what they consider the better codec, even on Android. Bluetooth, both Bluetooth 5, both do a true wireless stereo pairing, both have got USB-C charging, both have auxiliary inputs. We've still got auxiliary inputs. You might think, oh, well, that's great, but then you find out, well, it's 2020, and they are both IPX5, not even IPX6, so don't drop them in water, don't get too much water on, it's kind of splashy proof. So 58mm woofers, obviously two passive radiators, but we've got slightly bigger woofers, 63mm, and of course the passive radiators. In terms of, you want to know, latency, absolutely identical. Whether you're playing local files on your phone or playing YouTube, latency 100 milliseconds, which is okay. If you're really fussy, you will notice some lip sync issues, but otherwise 100 milliseconds is just about doable without, completely ruining, say, a movie or something like that. Battery life, you're expecting it to be similar. Both 30 watts, both got the same battery, and indeed, both play about an hour at maximum volume, and then kind of roll off a little bit. Not terrible. Sony does roll off in a terrible way, really extend it, but we've got 1 hour at actual maximum volume, 6 hours, 3 minutes on the PN7, 6 hours, 4 minutes. So it really was identical, with a slight roll off after basically an hour, and 66%, about the same again, kind of 66% volume. In total, just over 17 hours, 43 minutes and 17 hours. But that was a proper 66% on here. On the PL7, there is a roll-off every 6 hours. So there's a 6 hours and then it levels down, 6 hours and it levels down. So you end up with a high volume on your PN7. In terms of weight, it's 2 kilos. That's still doable, but it's, it's on the heavier side. But 1.5 kilos, for its size, this is really heavy. Although that's 500 grams heavier, this seems heavier because it's in such a compact form factor. It is about, well, it's 500 grams, half a kilo already bigger than the Anker Motion Plus. So what's interesting about the PN7 is interesting because we already had a sound boost mode, which I didn't like on the PL7. Some people do like it. Sound boost mode on the PL7 is a straightforward volume jump. It also gives you a bit more upper bass but it will cut the deep bass, and it will also give you a bit more of a peak at the high end. On the PN7, it does make a bit more, it is different tuning. We've got sound boost mode, we've got the standard mode, but we've also got DTS mode. DTS being the stereo plus mode. The idea being it's going to open up the sound, give you a kind of surround sound, like obviously it's 2 channels, but it's doing its clever trickery to fool your ears into thinking there's more going. It's a bigger soundstage, but obviously no longer that accurate to the original track. So how do they all compare? I'm going to first of all measure them at what I'm calling 60%, which means it is 60% in standard mode, and then it's 53% in sound boost mode and DTS mode. If you want to really hear the difference in DTS mode, you will indeed need to use headphones. So unlike the PL7, the different modes are a bit more, the difference is a bit more subtle, other than sound boost still has that, just goes louder to start with before it actually changes its sound signature. So it's fooling you a little bit by just adding a bit more volume to make it sound as though it's a bit more dynamic. But if you volume adjust, there isn't that much difference, but there are differences. Clearly the DTS does quite a nice job. It is a bit more open, a bit more immersive, but you're losing some of the mids, you're gaining a boost in the highs, and the vocals are not quite as solid as they would be in standard mode. Weirdly on this one, standard mode does have the deepest bass as on the PL7, but it also has bigger highs. When I say highs, we've got a big peak here at around 9 kilohertz. The peak here is at 11 kilohertz. Don't know, different day, different lunch, different drink. They've put the peak a couple of kilohertz higher. I don't know why, but it does mean on this sound boost mode is actually less of a peak than you've got with standard mode, but DTS has the highest 11 kilohertz peak of all. And sound boost does have that bigger upper bass. So you've got more punch, but less deep bass with sound boost mode, but it goes louder altogether. Well, that was at around 60%. Let's do it again, about what I'm calling 80%, but I'm volume matching them.
Never tell, just trust that I'll keep it locked in a cell. Never revealing no secrets you're keeping, these promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell. Yeah, like you, that's for sure. Never have to close the door. Been a long time, a year before, and I'm missing you so bad. Gone away a month or more. Every show I go before, need to hear that voice, cause right now it feels like it's been too long. I could never let you go on thinking about those secrets true. And I would never bet the world that I would find anyone like you. I'll never tell, just trust that I'll keep it locked in a cell. Never revealing no secrets you're keeping, these promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell. It's true, 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 it's true. You're an angel, that's for sure. With some devil, hear you roar, but I like it when you're on the floor. In my ear, be whispering. Used to have fun, now I'm bored. Do I miss you? Yes, of course. Think about that time when we stayed up all night talking. I could never let you go on thinking about those secrets true. And I would never bet the world that I would find anyone like you. I'll never tell, just trust that I'll keep it locked in a cell. Never revealing no secrets you're keeping, these promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell. It's true, 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 it's true.
Sound boost mode, standard mode. Standard mode is a bit stronger in the highs, stronger in the lower bass. Sound boost mode, stronger in upper bass, 150 Hz, 80 Hz. That's stronger than the standard mode, but standard mode has this stronger 50, 60 Hz lower bass. DTS standard mode. DTS has the bigger peak there, around the 11 kilohertz mark. DTS has a bit less in the mids. Look at that, 1000 to 2000 Hertz. And the standard mode does have the bigger, deeper bass, 60 Hertz. It's 2 dB up on DTS. Boost mode versus DTS. Always remember in sound boost, it just goes louder the moment you touch it. But normalized, DTS having the bigger peak, the 11 kilohertz, maybe a bit more airy. Missing those mids compared to sound boost. Sound boost having the more upper bass, but DTS having more lower bass than sound boost mode. So I do prefer the tuning, definitely, to what I remember from the PL7, and I'm going to get onto that comparison in a minute. But I would say it makes more sense, the tuning on the PN7, whereas the PL7, I mean, sound boost to me is just different for the sake of being different in some ways. Got to point out, of course, tuned with Meridian, or what they call with Meridian technology. You can make your own mind up whether that's suddenly taken the speaker to a whole different level, but what it doesn't do is take it to a more accurate level. I can tell you, standard mode and sound boost mode are about plus or minus 5 dB, which is about the same as the standard mode on the PL7. But when it comes to the DTS, obviously it's about immersion rather than accuracy. And that's reflected in the frequency response, which is now in a range of plus or minus 7.5 dB. When it comes to sound boost mode on the PL7, plus or minus 10 dB. Got nothing to do with frequency, with accuracy, and probably more to do with the party sound that, you know, a lot of you clearly like, because you do like sound boost mode. But it is a bass cut, and it is really hiking the very high end, actually at where you will get some sibilance. So summing up those differences, on the PN7, in terms of upper bass, sound boost mode is the heaviest in upper bass, followed by DTS, with standard mode being the least heavy in the upper bass. And when I'm saying in the upper bass, That's, you know, over and above what it would be naturally. In terms of mid-bass, sound boost mode is the strongest, followed by the standard mode, followed by DTS. But when it comes to deep bass, it is the standard mode you want, followed by DTS. And bringing up the rear is sound boost mode. In regards to that 11 kilohertz peak, the biggest peak is with DTS, followed by standard. And the opposite to what you get with the PL7, the sound boost mode has the least of a peak at that 11 kilohertz, albeit it's 9 kilohertz on the PL7. And I would also point out, DTS has the most recessed mids, but it tends to do that even if you get a soundbar. When you get these pseudo surround type of processing, tends to dig out the mids. So we compare. I don't know why I did that. I've got no idea why I did that. But you may or may not be LG. I should point out, one of the big deals about these speakers is they will hook up nicely to your LG TV. And if indeed that's why you're looking at LG, you may be looking at either of these, although already this probably makes more sense having DTS mode. However, if you are trying to choose between them, the both, because you're thinking, well, they're both 30 watts, they both go as loud as each other, well, let's compare the sound boost modes and the standard modes. Start with those boosted modes, the most processed modes, sound boost versus sound boost. Should point out that although standard mode is basically a bass cut, a volume cut on here, they're quite equivalent at the volumes that I'm going to be playing, which is around 70–75%. They play about the same volume at those volumes. The difference will be in how big the sound stage is.
I've been looking for something that haunts me all night. I've been staying up hours until the sunrise. Just so casual, always living the same life. I don't really mind, but I just need to take some time to get away. And die, 'cause I'm so bloody tired, yeah. But I'm alright, trust me babe, I'm alright. I'll just sit back and enjoy the ride. I've been looking for something that haunts me all night. I've been staying up hours until the sunrise. Just so casual, always living the same life. I don't really mind, but I just need to take some time to get away.
Sound boost mode, PN7 versus PL7. You can always tell them apart because the PL7 has the 9 kilohertz peak, PN7 has the 11 kilohertz peak. The difference between these two modes, PL7 has a little bit of a dip, 500 to 1000 hertz. It is stronger in the upper bass on the PL7, but when it comes to deeper bass, PN7 has it by 2 to 3 decibels when played at the same volume. So we do get a ridiculous big upper bass kick, whereas we've got more mid and deep bass on the PN7, and it's also clearly the most immersive. It has the biggest sound stage. The sound just opens up to make this one, the PL7, sound a bit compressed in comparison. So standard modes, should be the flattest modes, the most reasonable modes. Standard mode versus standard mode. Now, as I said, there may be a volume difference.
I walk to you so I can be close to you. It's really simple if you look at it that way. Time that we get by with money we don't know. Pockets empty but hearts are full anyway. Hey, playing like children, love like R&J. You were too good for me, but I wanted you anyway.
standard mode's PN7, and when normalized same volume, that means playing at the same volume, PL7 does have the bigger upper bass. We're looking at 150 Hz, stronger than PN7, but when it comes to deeper bass, PN7 is the winner. PL7 does have a noticeable dip, 3 to 7 kHz compared to the PN7. They both have a high-end peak, but it's 9 kHz on PL7, it's 11 kHz on PN7.
So I'm definitely preferring the sound on the PN7. And yes, it is a much bigger speaker. You may be thinking it's a silly comparison, but as I said, first of all, they're both LG speakers and they both hook up to LG TVs, and they're both 30 watts. So made by the same people, appear to be almost the same guts. And that's why I just thought it'd be interesting. And if you are thinking about either one of these speakers because you're just an LG fanboy, yes, they probably do exist, then you'll probably really want to know the differences. I prefer, plain and simple, the PN7. Let's take the Maxium. Let's do all the modes. There's going to be 5 modes here, and let's push them all.
La noche se prepara pa' cena caliente, pa' ponernos indecentes. Pa' este plato tú tienes el ingrediente. Ven y te digo que se siente mal. Cuando me bailes tú me pones high. No uses Gucci, ya prefieren Nike. Te quiero pero con poquita light, 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 light. Díganle al DJ que le ponga más, porque se ponga a sudar. Pa' pasarla bien, ella se porta mal cuando suena el paca, paca. Díganle al DJ que le ponga más, porque se ponga a sudar. Pa' pasarla bien, ella se porta mal cuando suena el paca, paca. Estás tan buena pa' bajarte ese blue jean. Rompe la disco con su flow de Medellín. Y estás soltera así como me gusta a mí. Pa' bailarme así. Rompe cadera cuando se pone salvaje. Moviendo sexy todo ese equipaje. La pista se pone territorio de alto voltaje. Pa' rimarse hay que llenarse de coraje. La noche se prepara pa' cena caliente, pa' ponernos indecentes. Pa' este plato tú tienes el ingrediente. La noche se prepara pa' cena caliente, pa' ponernos indecentes. Pa' este plato tú tienes el ingrediente. Ven. La noche se prepara pa' cena caliente, pa' ponernos indecentes. Pa' este plato tú tienes el ingrediente. La noche se prepara pa' cena caliente, pa' ponernos indecentes. Pa' este plato tú tienes el ingrediente. La noche se prepara pa' cena caliente, pa' ponernos indecentes. Pa' este plato tú tienes el ingrediente.
All played at maximum volume. PN7 sound boost goes the loudest, followed by DTS mode PN7, followed by, maybe surprise, PL7 in its sound boost mode, then the PN7 in its standard mode, but all of them pretty close apart from actual sound boost mode on the PN7. DTS all with minus 18.1, 18.3, 18.9, but half a decibel in it in terms of LUFS. But in terms of lower bass, well, the sound boost mode on the PL7 has a severe lower bass cut, replaces it with upper bass. So it does have a strong upper bass, but 6 dB down in terms of 60 Hz mark on the PN7. Then we've got PN7 in its standard mode, which does have the most of the bass, but doesn't have some of the highs and mids of the other modes. The really cobbled, I would have think artificially cobbled, lower volume of the standard mode on the PL7, given what its sound boost mode is capable of, 5 dB down in its standard mode, which is a shame because to me it's the better mode. And indeed, it still has the same lower bass as the sound boost mode, minus 33 at 60, minus 33. Sounds more balanced, whereas the sound boost mode is a hard listen. But at least they're quite close, the modes on the PN7, and it's a matter of taste. But on the PL7 standard mode, which is the balance mode, just doesn't go too loud at all. And the sound boost mode is pretty crippled mode, to my ears anyway.
So the sound boost mode can hold its own against the PN7 in the PL7, but it sounds very weedy. I don't like it. It's not a nice listen. I would still kind of prefer to listen to standard mode when we've even still got the bass, which is cut when you go to sound boost mode. It sounds thin. If you're outside and you need to cut through some backgrounds, that's maybe when it makes more sense, but it's not going to be a pleasant listen. It goes louder on the PN7. The modes make more sense. They seemed tuned in a more reasonable way. I still think maybe too many whiskies, too many vodkas. I don't know, when they had their business lunch and they were deciding what to do with that one. And they were a little bit more sober when they came up with this one. I say a little bit more sober. I don't think they were completely sober, if you see what I mean. So you got your handle, you get your handle, and then you put your speaker down. And what have you done? You put it on top of all the controls. So yeah, you got a handle, which you can't move. You think, oh, well, maybe it's got a ratchet system on there. Nope. You've got to remember to turn it round, put it down that way. And then, I suppose they thought they were being a bit clever. It's angled up a little bit. If you put it on the edge, you can still keep it flat. But it makes sense if it had some sort of clever mechanism and you could take it from there to there. But I'm telling you, you're going to do that all the time with this. Carry it, and then you just put it down. You're going to forget where it was, which way around, and you think, it's just awkward. It makes no sense. I don't really understand it. I should point out also, we've got this weird flap, and I'm not the weakest guy in the world. I have to tell you, I cannot open that without some implement. And if I use a pen, I'll probably break my pen. But the only way to open this flap is with using... Now that you used to be thinking, well, yeah, but they've done that to make it watertight, Al. Well, no, they haven't. This is IPX5. This is like prehistoric kind of stuff now. We used to be able to drop them in a swimming pool and it still exists later. But when you do get your flap open, you've got your auxiliary, you do have USB-C. You can do your pairing via here. There is an app, but it's not the greatest app in the world with LG. And you've got a reset button there. But once you've shut it, well, if I shut it properly, I don't think I'm ever going to get it open, because that's not actually shut. I got that open because it wasn't shut properly, but it's not even shut at all now. And Peter broke. I can open it now, but I have to tell you, it's no longer sealing for some reason. Oh, now it's sealed. Now I can't open it, so there you go. Something that's nice is, it did turn itself off, it went into standby. You can control your lights from the top, which is quite convenient if you don't want the lights on. I can just, I can hold my finger on it. Far out. I used to be able to hold my finger on it, and now it's not working. One, no. Right, there it went off. You have got your volume, obviously your volume up, your volume down. You can control your music. You can call up Alexa or Google Home or Siri or I don't know, whatever you've got that connected to. So it's not the worst thing in the world. I find it quite a pleasant listen. It's going to be interesting. I'll probably do a comparison with the Sony XB43, even with the Motion Plus. I do enjoy listening to it. The DTS mode does work quite well, but it is a big speaker. It's probably just a little bit, something in between the two would have been great. This handle drives me crazy. At least the passive radiators are not as exposed ridiculously as they are on the PL7. You got to wonder who is designing these things, because I mean that's an accident waiting to happen. But anyway, maybe it's about design over practicalities or something like that. So I prefer the PN7 to the PL7. They go about the same in terms of loudness if you use sound boost mode, but the standard mode seems deliberately crippled for some reason on the PL7. It's more reasonable on the PN7, and there's a reasonable amount. You might be expecting a boombox. It ain't a boombox, but the bass is pleasant. I find this a pleasant listen, and it'll be interesting when I do more comparisons, if indeed I do more comparisons, if indeed there's much interest in it, and I don't get wrapped up in other speakers. I will do comparisons down the line. Thank you for watching.